Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to another edition of the RTI Speed Tips by Bob and Chad, episode number 33. So, welcome to the show, Chad. Of course, you probably see that we got a special guest here, the famous stock car dude that told Kelly Shattuck he was going to whip his butt this weekend with his race car. So we got a little going on there to see how that 3 and 99 car work out together when they get to race. The class we just got through with our stock car class, and the class unanimous. They margin-wise, they thought that we should make sure that we filmed that when Kelly and Paul get to race together, because that would make an excellent episode for clips for the RTI Knowledge Center, excellent for school and training and what to do or what maybe not to do and all that kind of stuff. So how you been, Chad?
Doing good. Busy, yeah. Kicked off the first day of March here with what we call March Madness, which has nothing to do with basketball. It has to do with the month before the race season. So just keeping busy here, getting everything ready for the season.
Yeah, how about you, Paul? Of course, I got to spend a couple of days with you, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Just got back from spending a couple of days there at your school, and then come back to the madness here. So, yeah, it's March is always an exciting month of the year to get ready for the big season coming up.
Well, it's just amazing, I mean, today we had a record package shipment. I mean, the biggest day we've ever had in one day. I mean, I was totally amazed. I knew everybody was pretty busy because the phone kept ringing all the time, and so that was pretty exciting. And school went well. I thought you and Kelly did a great job, and Pat. It was nice having Pat here, kind of offer a little bit more on the driver's side of things, and so I thought it was pretty good. I thought the class was great. We had great students, a lot of great questions, and I sure thought it was a great group.
Yeah, I did too. When I did that last year or whatever, I noticed last year the guys weren't as interactive as they were this year, which, I mean, my suggestion to anybody that goes to them schools, I mean, the more of the questions, the better. I mean, that's what you're there for. So, I mean, and definitely that was cool to see this year. There's a lot of interaction with everybody from the class, so that was way good.
You bet. Yeah, we had people from Texas, California. It was pretty cool. You actually just got back from doing a school here out in California, didn't you, Chad?
Yeah, I went out and joined Andy Eckridge out there for a 2-day deal in California. So it was a good time. It was nice to get out on the West Coast and not only get out on -25 Wisconsin, but to see our great our customers and friends on the West Coast. And it was pretty cool to do another school. I've been doing them with you for 7-8 years, and
sure,
it was cool to get out and do one with Andy and kind of get a different approach to things. But we had a good time. It was a fun trip. Everything went pretty smooth, and so it was a neat deal.
Good. Yeah, it's always pretty interesting, especially if you go to a new area and then do it with somebody different. I mean, it gives you a different approach, and Andy does a great job, and he's had good luck with his schools, and very informative. His approach is a little different than mine, but that's kind of the same with, like the Mark Bush School and a lot of the other schools. Everybody's got a different approach, and that's kind of what I tell people that, yeah, we'd like to have you come back to our school, but if you don't go to our school, at least go to somebody's school, because, you just get so much information from everybody that, and then like I said, with our school, I mean, the questions were great. I mean, there was questions were asked that I hadn't even thought about putting in any of the content for the school. So that was pretty good. But
the one thing that I always think that's cool about those schools, because I've never really been to any of the setup schools or any of the chassis schools. I've always, been self-taught, so to, whatever. But I definitely think it's beneficial to go, just because I myself, I always learn. You always learn something new, or something gets brought to your attention that it kind of makes you think different of how you do something, or it's I mean, there's no reason why even the guys that have been racing for 20, 30 years, I mean, they might get a different outlook on what they're doing, or make them change what their program or anything like that. So it's cool to be a part of. I appreciate it.
Well, and the thing was, of course, we ended the day on a pretty good note because I got to learn what high-speed milking, the driving style of high-speed milker is.
Yep.
I actually didn't know that one before.
Yep.
And it's kind of like I told the class, I said, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I still constantly learn something new. And I learned all about high-speed milking, the way you drive the car.
I mean, it's a thing. It's
I thought that was pretty good.
There's a driving style to it, without a doubt. It's kind of funny because it started. There's I don't want to say names, but the pancaking comes from Mike Nichols. That's not how he drives his car, but there's a particular guy that he races with, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna pancake that thing in there until and then you add high speed milking in there, on the steering wheel, just giving her. I mean, it's a deadly combination. I mean, you're going places when you're doing it, so it's like I said,
at least you're having fun. You might not be going nowhere, but boy, it's just like you are. You're stalling on that steering wheel, and no doubt about that. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure if guys use that driving style down at Bristol, it's going to work perfect. That'll be the fastest way to meet the record guy and Brenda, the chick that works for the paramedics.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. They said I'm getting feedback on my mic.
I think Paul has his speakers a little bit loud.
Okay. Anyway, so when do you leave for Bristol, Chad?
The first rig is leaving Saturday the 12th or 13th that weekend. So I'm leaving Sunday, whatever the day after that is. So we just started getting ready for that. Austin's actually hooking the trailer up right now, and we're gonna try and start working on the truck and trailer and get everything dialed in. It's gonna be a big week, man. There's a lot of race cars, and anytime you have an event like that with that amount of race cars, just like the Super Nationals, it's going to take a ton of support. I know there's a bunch of manufacturers going, so we're excited to get back out on the road again and see the customers. Kind of like going to school in California. Last year we were pretty much just doing the local stuff and did get to do Super Nationals, but we're excited to get down towards the southeast and see that new group of people. I think a lot of the 602, 604 late model guys are coming from down there, so.
Yep.
I'm excited, man. It's going to be a fun week, and it's pretty neat what Barry and them guys are all doing to get short track racing in a marquee event. So glad they're letting us be a part of it.
Yeah, I tell you, I watched some of those videos when they were doing some of those testing, and wow, that just looks awesome, man. Yeah, I did no doubt about that. I'm not going to be able to go myself, but I'm definitely going to be buying it on TV.
Yeah, I know we were worried about some different parts and whatnot, and I talked to Steve Arpin quite a bit after he ran there in the open modified, and we were really worried about like the Panhard bar taking major loads, and I was even worried about hubs and steering arms and that kind of thing. But he said that when you go into the corner, it kind of takes the whole car and smashes it against the bank.
Yep.
And then around. So there ain't as much lateral load as we were initially thought. As long as they keep it smooth, there should be, I would say, minimal part issues. My concern is it looks like they're going to be going so fast. It's going to be hard to pass is my concern. But hopefully they get a good race track and put on a good show.
Well, that's the thing. What it looked like, the way those guys were running the racetrack. I mean, it looked like it was, the car would just go in and the whole car would load. You didn't really see, a lot of left rear hike is like what you would on some of the other things. It was just the whole car was loaded pretty good. So you got customers going down there, Paul?
Yeah, we got quite a few. Yeah, we got quite a few stock cars going down there. We got a few sport mods going down there. I don't know yet if I'm even going to make it myself or not. I planned on bringing my car down there, but I don't know if that's even going to happen. We got a lot of cars that we got to finish up here yet before the end of the month. So it's probably more important to get that stuff done, and then hopefully I can take care of any needs or whatever over the phone is what I'm hoping. So
Sure.
yeah.
You bet. Okay, Jesse, I bought school, watch it at home, but I run Crusoe rules. Can run bump stops and tie it down, so I'm better run lighter springs or heavier ones. You talk in the class, causing about everyone in the class running 600 or so right front. Yeah, in that situation, when you can run a bump stop, you don't need to necessarily run that stiff a spring because the only thing is you need to kind of know how the load is. You could run a little bit softer spring, but it's going to depend a little bit of experimenting on what bump stop that you actually use. And I'm not the expert on bump stops by all means because I've not really run them a whole lot. But yeah, you would definitely run softer than a 600. I would say you'd probably be 5 1/4, something like that, or even 500 with a bump stop would probably not be such a bad deal. Kind of depends on your racetrack. I mean, like we said, there at Bristol, the way they're hitting the corners, I mean, the whole car probably needs to be a little stiffer. So it just depends on speed. How do you measure the amount of zip bang in your car, Paul?
That's that loaded question that I always give you guys. It's actually it's pretty hard to figure out, really. It's you got to add in the roll of the car and then the wrap up of the rear end and then how hard you're on the gas. That's where you get your true equation of zip bang. And then usually after that's released, then you get the kapow. So
is it a ratio like the higher the zip bang, the more high speed milking?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yep,
Could
exactly.
be. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
2 helmet straps usually you can't just have Hans device is useless against if you got too much zip bang in your car. It's just not a good thing.
I got a question from Cody. Cody wanted to know if I had a chance to check on the left rear spring on stock cars. What are most guys running? Well, I did better than that, Cody. I actually got the man here with us tonight about stock cars that can tell us everything there is to know about zip bang, all those other things, but he knows left rear springs too. So what type of springs when guys are running a softer spring setup in a stock car, what are some of the things that they do, or what's the most common left rear spring for a guy that's just starting out?
For guys that are just starting out, I think I would stay in that realm of a 175 in the left rear. We have guys that run 100, 125, 150s. I myself personally like to stay in that 150 realm. I don't know. If you run 100, 125, I mean, it's good. It's good. You got to put a lot of load into it. But then, when guys are running them soft springs, you definitely got to make sure that you replace them and check them. Usually after about 8 to 10 races, you probably want to put a new spring in there. Sometimes even less. I mean, they're usually pretty good right out of the box, but it kind of depends on the track surface you're racing on too. Because if you got a real heavy track, for heat races, and then it doesn't slick off enough for the feature, you probably don't want to be running that soft of a left rear spring. But yeah, the key is how much load you put into it, and then we've got guys that run 225 left rear springs, so it's really what a driver's looking for and what he wants out of it.
Well, and the thing about the lighter weight spring, you do have to put a lot more load in it to get the spring to do what it's supposed to do. By doing that, you're shortening the life of that spring because, of course, the spring was never designed to carry that much load. So, with these cars, and everything mounted sort of solid back there, so the springs aren't like in a slider where they are contained. They tend to bow, and it's definitely a situation that can cause a problem. So there you have it, Cody. You got the answer from the man. Brandon, Chad, do you make a swivel pocket for the front for a 5.5, or is the 5-inch and the 5.5-inch the same cup?
So we make all of our cups for 5 and 5.5 in the OD the new OD grab. and the old school regular ID alignment. So we do have all of them available now. So this is a 5.5 tall. We do have the 5.5 short, which is a 485S-5.5, and then we also have the drop bearing cup, which lowers the bearing down, which lowers the spring table, which is a 485D-5.5.
So all of you guys that are out there listening, make sure we've got our stock car expert with us tonight. So anybody that's got any stock car questions, make sure you chime in here. And of course, Chad and I'll be here to answer whatever other questions, and we'll get Paul's opinion on them too. So another great guest tonight. Looking forward to the season. You know, Chad mentioned about going to Bristol, and you know, it's hard to believe, but within 3 weeks, I mean, everybody's going to be, going to be racing within 21 days. A lot of people are going to race. Beatrice is scheduled to go same weekend as Bristol. They've got that Nebraska tour that's a pretty good paying tour. That's the week after that, and so. Yeah, I'm going to have to get my motorhome out of storage. It feels too cold to be getting the thing out of storage yet, but I'm going to have to get that out of storage here and get it ready to go, because it won't be long. In 3 weeks, we'll be ready. So if you go lighter, left rear, how much lighter do you think? So if you go lighter left rear spring, how much lighter do you go on the right front? I'm old school. I'm not convinced on this light left rear stuff. If you do go with that lighter left rear spring, what do you do for the right front? Do you go lighter on the right front then also?
Once again, it kind of all depends, but I mean, if you run a softer right front spring, and if you're not loading it, like if you don't pin it down or control the rebound, if you got the car just statically sitting on the spring, I myself, it's kind. I mean, we could go like spend an hour on this, if not better. But I mean, it's like if you got a 900-pound spring, the car is going to rotate into the corner better, but you are going to sacrifice forward drive by having too soft of a right front spring. I myself personally want to pay a little more attention on my car this year with running lower static ride height. Since now that they get the rule, we can't pin the right front on the ground or pin the right front down. I want to kind of pay more attention to my car statically having a lower ride height in the right front, so I'm closer to dynamic ride height, and run a stiffer right front spring, and then use a stiffer rebound on the right front shock. So that way the car is going to naturally rotate into the corner better, but then when you get on the gas, you're going to have that stiffer spring there to push back, so it gives you more forward drive coming off. So it's just a guy's really got to pay attention to that, like where your ride height is on the right front. We kind of went over that in the school last weekend, where, if your ride height's too hard, your table, call it the spring table, or your ride height, the car's not going to rotate in as easy at the beginning of the quarter if you got too high of a ride height. So if you statically just drop, or lower your ride height, that's going to help the car enter into the corner better too. So, I mean, but I myself, I'm an old school guy that way too. I believe that if you run a stiffer right front spring, you're going to get more drive when you pick up the gas by having a stiffer. It's going to help get back on the back of the car, left rear, driving off harder. So,
Nate's got a question. What's the ideal camber degree for the front on a hobby stock?
The ideal is like right around 4.5. I mean, 5. It's kind of standard with everything. I mean, just pay attention to your tire wear. You want enough so the thing, you want to keep the tread on the ground. So, I mean, you just got to kind of mess with it. But 4.5 to 5 is usually pretty much standard for a hobby car. Negative camber.
Yeah. Lindsay's got a question about ride height. Do you prefer to set the ride height with or without the driver? Well, first let me explain. A lot of chassis builders, their car set to the point where it can you can have a set of numbers without the driver, and that's for the average 200-pound driver. Now, that being said, what they've done is they've actually set the car with the driver in it and got the measurements and got the car all set up like they wanted it to. Then the driver gets out of the car and they retake the measurement. And so then the measurement that they're giving you for the average 200-pound driver is they have already experimented with you. So do what your chassis builder is telling you to do. I prefer to do it with the driver because, of course, everybody weighs a little differently. I mean, a lot of people are that average 200-pound driver, but sometimes you get somebody that's 120 pounds and somebody that's a little bigger than that. And so one of the things that I recommend, like I said, is stress the fact, do whatever your chassis manufacturer recommends. I prefer to do it with the driver in the car. Joey, is it better to run a J-bar or a Panhard bar? Well, if your rules allow you to run a Panhard bar, the J-bar. I like the J-bar much better because it mounts in front of the housing. And so when the rear end wraps up and the car hikes up, then everything is working in raising the J-bar. Where with the Panhard bar being behind the housing, what can happen is when the chassis raises up and then the rear end rotates, it actually lowers and puts more degree of angle in the Panhard bar. So it actually runs a little bit tighter car. However, if your rules are one specific way where you have to run the Panhard bar like the IMCA Sport Mod, you've got what you have and you just learn to adjust it accordingly. You might not run as much as much static, starting out less angle on the Panhard bar and letting it work its way. Tyler's got a question. With no IMCA stock car deck rule, how much are you using the rear deck as a spoiler, Paul?
I mean, I would use it as much as you can. I mean, air is free traction. I mean, anytime you can grab the air, that's going to, create downforce. That's going to create forward drive. So, hopefully soon IMCA comes out with some standard measurements for that deck height. I know it's going to be hard to find or figure out because each body has a different deck height. Monte Carlo rear, their trunk's like 3 inches lower than like on a Monte Carlo or like the body I have in my car is a Cutlass. So, I mean, tentatively, you're going to have a higher deck height on that. I mean, like my car with our standard ride heights to the corner, we're at about 45 inches of deck height, which is pretty crazy because sport mods and modifieds are only 38 inches. So it's, you do have an advantage there, and I would definitely pay attention to that. I mean, and anytime, and then a dynamic, ride height and load, you got, like on my car, I'm at 56 to 55. So you're gaining 10 inches of angle as you go into the corner. So, I mean, it plays a huge effect on how much drive you can get out of the car coming off the corner.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those cars that have some pretty drastic hits in the back there. So I'm pretty confident for at least probably in 2022, we're definitely going to have some rules that are going to give us some guidelines like the other classes do.
Yeah, they're trying. We've been sending, I know I've been talking to Brett and Dave, and they've been trying to, figure out a happy medium there to come up with something, but it's going to be tough because, I mean, like our cars, we really don't have it all, we don't have it cheated as much as you could. I mean, if a guy really, grabbed a file and a hammer, I mean, you could get some more angle in there real easy. So get some more deck height, I mean.
In a stock car, if your rules allow running a progressive left rear spring, do you think it's worth trying? Or if so, what would be the benefit of it? My opinion, I'm a little bit skeptical of a progressive spring because, of course, it all depends on when it progresses. What's your opinion on that, Paul?
I would say the same thing, especially when, maybe more so on the right rear, you would have a better outcome with having a progressive on the right rear. But then once again, you'd never know, as you rolled into the corner. I mean, I think you can control that better with your shock and how much it bleeds off and than you would be with a progressive. I know that Swift they have a spring that, where it pretty much binds up, right after it compresses a certain amount. But, I don't know if there's a huge gain there. And then even on the left rear, that's more, you're putting load into it, but as the car hikes up, you're not really, it'd be pretty tough. I don't think you'd gain anything out of that.
Sure. Okay. This one's for you, Chad. Last time you mentioned the angle finder has a gyro in it and was not good for setting caster and camber. Could you use two of the angle finders 90 degrees from each other? That way you can set the one you are using to measure it at 0.
So here's the deal. We came up with this cool spindle checker, okay? And then we put a flat on there and said, hey, you can check caster on your spindle. Cool. You tip it like that, it reads. You tip it this way, it also changes when you tip it inboard. So I don't know if you can see the number changing there. So we just, these things are meant to be in a single plane. They're not meant to go two directions and try and read the angle when you got not only caster, but then you're also got your inclination of the spindle. So that's the problem. So, I mean, yes, if you take this and you magnet it to our spindle checker like that, okay, and then you have your caster, and then you square this thing to be 90 degrees to the world with your other one off one side of it, so you can buy two from Bob for $39.95 or $99 instead of just one. Then you can square this up and be 90 degrees to the world, and then it'll be accurate. But if you have the style that screws on rigidly to your spindle and reads it at both angles, it's never correct. So unfortunately, this was brought to our attention by a fellow manufacturer that said, hey, you can't check caster on your spindle checker anymore. And we were like, whoa. So I had a couple of my guys run the numbers back and forth, old school, turning the wheels, and then running it with this. And they're like, hey, it's really different. And actually, the one guy had positive left front caster instead of negative left front caster. So, is it a huge difference? No, but when you're talking about 3 degrees caster split and it's off by 1.25 degrees,
that's big.
That's a lot.
So
you got a flat spot machined onto that, Chad?
Yeah, so we put a flat spot on there just for doing that. And then when it was brought to our attention,
a second flat spot on there to check caster?
That's what I'm talking about for that is for caster.
That is for caster. Okay.
When it's screwed on the spindle. The problem is when it's reading the caster, it also has spindle inclination. So the gyro gets lost. You see how that's moving when I'm moving it?
Yeah. But could you put a second flat spot on there and then measure camber on that, or no?
No, you can't measure camber off the spindle. Yeah, that's off the hub face.
Well, off the hub, yep.
Yeah, but you can take this and go on our spindle checker and then take another angle finder, which if I had two, you put another one on here, and if this is 90 degrees to the world, so your gyro ball is in the right spot, and then you have your caster, then it would be accurate. So you would have to square this up. That's the tool we're working on, is a tool that this will actually be able to have two angles on it. So you'll read this to 90 and you'll still have your caster and your gyro won't be lost. So I know it seems like a crazy deal, but it's a fact. So unfortunately, that's the way that's got to be done. Or just kick it old school and use your old school caster camera gauge.
That always works really well.
Yeah.
Lance says, hello guys. I'm looking forward to this weekend USMTS race. Hopefully I get to use the knowledge I've learned from these videos. Thanks again for what you guys do. Well, I appreciate it, Lance. Have a good time down there in Texas at that race, and hopefully everything goes good for you. Ryan's got a question. And Chad, I purchased all the Wehrs ID cups not long before the OD stuff came out. Haven't had a chance to run it yet. Were your first OD cups an adaptation part that bolts onto the ID cup, and is that available?
Yeah, so our first adapters will go on a standard one, Ryan. I don't know if you have 5-inch or 5.5, but we could do that for you. The best bet would be just give us a call tomorrow and we can figure out what you got there and retrofit you. Or if you haven't used them cups, we have taken them in and we could swap them out for you if they're brand new, so that you got the most ideal package going into 2021 too. So give us a call tomorrow.
Okay. What's the question about? Okay. Tyler, with no IMCA stock car rear firewall angle rule, how much are you using the rear firewall as a spoiler?
We're using it as much as you can. I mean, they do have. I mean, there's like realistic. You know, they don't want you to go crazy. You can go crazy on that back firewall. You can kind of, you know what I mean. You can kind of, yeah. You could get crazy, but they'll make you change it because it's got to somewhat similarly look like a rear firewall. So I mean, yeah, you can do some stuff back there, but you got to keep within the realm, I guess, if you want to say that.
Got it. Cody's got another question. He wants to know, what are the best trailing arm angles to run on an IMCA stock car?
I probably should have went and measured that, Bob. Remember that same question was in. We had that last weekend. I myself personally, the angle. I always just tell my customers, like on our cars, you know, second hole down, top hole on the rear on the right side, and bottom hole left side. I don't know the exact angles, but I can find those out for you, Cody. But I mean, you're limited to IMCA gives you that 7-inch drop, so you can only get so much angle. But you also got to remember that, you know, static angle and dynamic angle are two different things. So if you can get your car to get over on the right rear more, or get your left rear up more and get more angle in that left rear, it's going to create more drive. So it's something to always keep in the back of your head when you're, you know, checking your shock travels or your suspension travels and stuff like that. If you can get more dynamic angle in it, it's going to help forward drive. So.
Well, I actually asked a customer over the weekend to measure his stock car because he had it sitting on the scales. And
yep.
His car, he said, putting it in the stock holes, and it's a B&B car. He said the right rear measured 10 and the left rear measured 20.
Yep, that sounds about right.
That sounds realistic. I mean, that would be,
yep.
You know, in the sport mod world, that's what we would be looking at. You know, pretty much any type of tooling car would be looking at that.
And as it drives out, take angle away from the right rear bar.
Right. What position should the brake caliper be when running a left rear brake floater, or where do you set it? At ride height or at dynamic? Well, you know, of course, you would definitely want to make sure that at dynamic that it definitely can't rock over. That would be the best thing to do, is take the spring out of the right front and get that down as far as you could on the right front, and then jack it up underneath the seat till the left rear gets on the chain, and you're definitely going to want to make sure that it can't over-index, because when that thing over-indexes, it creates a lot of bad stuff. What would you recommend, Chad?
Yeah, so our brake footers are built in with a 1-inch setback in the arm. We still do recommend to rock the caliper back a little bit, and just like you said, just make sure you're not even close to camming that thing over at dynamic.
Yeah. Bruce sent my shocks into Bobby on Wednesday, got him back today. Amazing. Love it. Thank you guys for the snappy service. Well, I appreciate it, Bruce. It's always good to hear all those good comments. I will pass that along tomorrow. Lindsay, what is a preferred angle on a pull bar for a little bigger track like Humboldt and Kansas? Do you want more instant traction or less angle to keep traction in longer? Well, Humboldt's another place that's a pretty fast racetrack. Myself, you know, we're still on places like Humboldt. Momentum racing still going to be the key. I wouldn't run. I mean, 15-degree angle is going to be a good number, because I would rather have traction in the car the whole racetrack rather than giving short bursts of traction and having it run out, because you know, you just never know when it's going to run out. Bruce, Chad, what is your Bristol schedule? Hunt the Front does a good job telling us you are going. Any free stuff not getting clear? I'll let you read this one, Chad. This one's for you.
The first part was for me. The second part is for the stock car fella. Any free stuff not get claimed from the 5,000 to win stock car race last summer at A's? He said he didn't meet his expectations that night.
What the
My
heck?
schedule in Bristol is probably going to be pretty nuts, I would imagine.
Yeah. You'll be a busy fellow down there.
But if you're there, Bruce, stop by.
Popular guy. Second question was for that stock car fellow. Oh yeah, got it.
I'm trying to read that. I don't know what he means by any free stuff not get claimed from the 5,000 win stock car race last summer in Hayes, Kansas. I didn't meet my expectations that night. That I don't know. I don't know if there was any unclaimed free stuff. I don't remember.
Bruce, second question was Dalton. Have you guys ran into any clearance issues inside the pocket with the new OD 5.5 spring cup? That's a possibility. A lot of times when the cars are the stubs are made and when the frames are made, they didn't factor in the clearance is too close. I'd get out my grinder.
If somebody, I know, like on the right front, like on our cars, Dalton, there shouldn't be no issues on the right front. Left front, there could be an issue if a guy is running OD cup over there because all of us chassis manufacturers have kind of cheated out that bolt a little bit, closer to the outside of the frame. So it's pretty tight already up there. So, but we're supposed to move them back in per IMCA's demand. So a guy's going to probably have to alter that anyways. But so yeah, you might run into an issue there on the left front.
Steven, on my sport mod, I've been lifting at the Panhard bar mount instead of under the seat to check the chain. Is there something I'm missing by not going underneath the seat? The Panhard bar mount, it's the same. It's just the big difference is in your situation, you've got another mount or another place where you can jack the car up. If you had a J-bar car or like a regular modified or a Wasota modified or a straight USRA modified, you wouldn't have that Panhard bar mount. So there's no difference. You're doing the same thing. Marcus, I know you guys are not talking about B mods, but was wondering if you could give me a recommendation. Is 9 degrees of pinion angle too much to start at ride height? Does less or more have an effect on the drive of the car? Well, that's another debate. A lot of people say more has an effect on the drive. In my opinion, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. In answer to your question, 9 degrees on a B mod's plenty. I don't know if you would need that amount. We run, as a normal deal, run 7 degrees, which comes out to the point where when the car is all hiked up, that the drive shaft is pretty much zero. So that's the biggest thing to do is check that, get the movement you think you're getting and make sure you just don't go past zero is all I would be concerned about. IMCA stock car question. Where's the best place to mount lead over the rear end? High and right, above the rear end, center, or right and left? I'll let you have that, but I learned from the pictures, so I know the answer, but I'll let you have
it. Yeah, exactly. The thing is anytime we could spend a lot of time on this, but I mean, it's like, I recommend that your weight should be put center line in the race car, period. It should, everything center line, have a bunch behind, not a bunch, but, 75, maybe 100 pounds behind the fuel cell, some under the fuel cell, and then the rest in front of the fuel cell, accordingly, wherever you want. You could, and you want some weight up and some weight low, just like Kelly said this at the deal this weekend, that, one chunk up top and one chunk down below kind of contradicts itself, so it zeroes itself out. Problem is if you start putting lead on the right rear, people sit there and I can't feel the right rear. I can't feel the right rear. Well, if you got all your lead sitting on the right rear, that's why you can't feel it, because heaviest point of the car breaks loose first, so you have all the weight over there. It's kind of like the teeter-totter effect. If you put all the lead on one side of the teeter-totter, how is it going to transfer back to the left side, or even how is it going to transfer to the right side when it's already sitting there? So it's Stephen Bowers laughed at me when I said this last year, but it's just, you got to have, your car's got to be balanced. And the only way you can balance it is having it in a neutral position, which would be in the center line of the car. And then if you need to get your weights, you might have to slide some lead to the left a little bit to get your left side weight, or you might have to slide a little bit, 25 pounds. And then even as far as adjustment, like from heat to features, I would never move like maybe 25 pounds, from one point to the other. Don't get into taking 100 pounds off the left rear and dropping it on the right rear. That's just the wrong way to do it. That's just bad. But center line, in my personal opinion, center line, and I know there's other guys. I know, I won't say names, but I know there's some guys there's a guy out there that wins a lot of races and he carries a lot of weight on his right rear corner of the car, and but not everybody can get away with that.
Yeah, in my opinion, it would be better to have a balanced race car because the car is going to be. The thing about it, when you're balanced, especially with that much weight that you have to put on these cars to get rear percentage up, when the car is balanced, then it's going to respond to a change in the car. When the car is already out of balance, you can make a change and it might do twice as much as you think it should, or it might do half as much as you think it should. And that's kind of what we talked about in the school this weekend. In my opinion, I would have the car balanced, and then I would have a 25-pound chunk of weight, depending on where I wanted it. If I'm in a real heavy type racetrack and the right rear stuck pretty hard, I'd mount that thing up there on the left front corner, keep that left front corner down and keep it off the right rear. If I was in a real slow, dry, slick racetrack where you got to drive down in, stop and start, maybe putting that 25-pounder on the right rear would be the thing to do. But keep in mind, 25 pounds is about 1%. So I mean, it's a situation where it's hard to believe, but 25 pounds makes a ton of difference on a race car.
It does.
Got some new Wehrs two-link trickery for our 9-inch rear end. So sexy, it'll be a shame to cover the back of the car up in the pits. Well, don't put that cover on then. I'd leave that cover off so everybody can see that stuff. That's what we're all about, man. How else are we going to learn what's going on back there?
Thanks, Jim.
Darren, recommendations for standard valving for a front left shock on a B-mod. Standard valving, what we run is a 4-5, 4 on compression, 5 on rebound. And then if we do something that's more of a slick type condition, we go to a 5-3. So like a little more compression, tighten the car up a little bit more, getting in. 3 rebound to get it over, so that the car can get over in the right rear a little quicker to maintain the side bite in the car when the racetrack slows down. Marcus, next question is pull bar mount center, behind center, in front of center. What does it do for that rear of that car? I'll let you have that one, Chad.
So most of the cars are, I would say, 1 to 4 in front of the center line, and that's kind of always been there. Back, a couple years ago, you get more axle wrap. So the distance that the pull bar travels is the key. So like on an open UMP car, I don't know what you race there, Marcus, but open UMP cars, they're traveling the pull bar a lot longer. So they need to be forward so that as the car is dynamically gaining height and the pull bar is pulling and the axle is wrapping, it doesn't fall past center. So the current trend with shorter travel on the pull bars on the hard tire classes, technically you can go farther back then because you're never going to cam over. So there is traction going farther back and a longer bar and a slower bar to gain more traction. So it's kind of a balancing act. As long as you're only traveling the pull bar an inch and a quarter, you're safe to go back behind center line. You won't cam that over, but it's one of them things where I would probably just go where your chassis builder recommends and tune accordingly.
Yeah. Most generally, Marcus, I like to run everything in the center. And when I mean center of the 2 rear wheels. So if you've got an offset rear end, it might be off center looking on the center section, but it would be in the center of the 2 rear wheels. That's kind of what I'd like to see. Oh yeah, one thing Got to make sure everybody sees my hat that I got on tonight. I won that this weekend. Well, actually, I didn't win it. I had to con a guy out of it.
Stole it out of the giveaway.
I had to trade him 2 BHE hats to get this hat. So I had this for Monday night. I'm like,
Wow.
boy, this is an expensive hat, man. But boy, it fits good. I mean, it looks good. I mean, blue. I kind of tried to do a little color matching here, for tonight. Oh, and now that we're thinking about it, oh yeah, we got to remember August isn't that far away for the Harris Clash, Deer Creek, Minnesota. Spring Valley, Minnesota, Deer Creek Speedway in Spring Valley, Minnesota. What is the most left side weight you would run on a 3,000-pound pro stock?
That's driver preference. I mean, you could run, if you like a free car, you could run 56% left side weight. It's going to skate on entry, but when you get to the middle of the corner, it's definitely going to drive off. I mean, once again, that goes back to you just got to find the balance of the car. I mean, 52.5, 53.5 always seems to be a good number, a good place to be. But, in the drive, 51.5, somewhere in there. But,
And I was talking about that without the driver.
What's that?
Your numbers are without the driver.
No, that's with the driver.
That's with the driver.
Yep.
Well, I know Kelly talked about it this weekend at the school that, left side weight's traction. The problem is the more left side weight you get, the freer the car can be getting into the corner. So you kind of have to pick out a balancing point where I'd run the most left side weight that I could and still make sure I turned and the car would rotate on corner entry and rotate in the middle, because it would definitely give it more traction off the corner.
Yep.
What is the pros and cons of running a heavier or lighter spring on the left front? Well, and keep in mind the spring on the left front, the only time you're really going to notice what spring you have in the left front is on corner entry when you're off the throttle. The heavier spring is going to keep the load in the right rear and keep more side bite in the car. So a heavier left front spring is going to make the car tighter on corner entry when you're off the throttle. Once you're back on the throttle, the race car really doesn't know what left front spring you really have in the car. It wouldn't know if you had a 500-pound spring or if you had a 1,000-pound spring. But right when you first initially enter the corner in phase one, the car is going to notice, it's going to either keep load in the right rear and keep the left front up so that it keeps load in the right rear, or it's going to unload. So it just depends on what you want it to do. We tell people, if you want the car to be tighter on corner entry, go with a stiffer spring. If you want it to be freer on corner entry, soften up that spring on the left front. Well, Marcus runs a Wayzata B-Mod.
So there's little travel there, so farther back, definitely.
Yeah, I would have to say so too. I mean, the big thing is just max out where your travel is so you don't go past a center point. When you start changing the angle, the biggest thing is, and that's another one of those deals where it depends on who you talk to. I think it would be more important to be closer on a Wayzata B-Mod. I'd rather have it closer to the housing. I'd worry more about how my distance away from the housing than I would front to back on that situation. Chad, on a coilover Wehrs kit, can you just buy the parts for the OD grab instead of an all-new right rear switch over to the OD?
I would actually just get the little, we do make the adapter washer for the old school, our first generation coilover kit. So I would just order the 2 washers to convert it to an OD. I think that's the least expensive option. So I believe that number's a WM308 SA spring adapter, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Just call tomorrow and ask for the 5-inch OD grab or 5-inch OD grab conversion for the coilover kit. And Billy or Austin or Steve or me or whoever answers the phone, we'll get you dialed in.
Well, Emily answers the phone.
Yeah, you're right. Emily directs traffic. I don't answer the phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or Rhonda, one of those two.
One of the girls, then they point their direction.
All right. I just thought I'd bring that to your attention.
Traffic directors.
Yes, I mean, they might be thinking they're calling and talking to Austin, and it's not going to sound like Austin.
Rhonda's probably watching too, so now I'm in really deep shit. So
Oh, way to go, Chad. Thank God I was here to help you out. Anyway, Cody Lee. Chad, do you have a latest spring style load stick close by so you can show us and talk to us briefly on it? And it would have to be briefly because we only have 10 minutes left.
I can run and grab that real fast. I think there's one. Let me go see. The 5.5-inch Torrington bearing. The next question. 2 weeks.
Yeah, the Torrington bearings, 2 weeks till the Torrington bearings are here. Paul, how many stock cars did you build this year?
We actually just started number 49 and 50, and we've got, by the time the end of March, beginning of April, it'll be about 64 cars.
Well, that's pretty good. Well, that's really good.
Yeah.
You guys ain't been just laying around naps up there.
Yeah, no, there's not. It keeps you out of trouble. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Next question. That's it. Okay. Well, Cody, we'll get back to you here in a little bit when Chad gets back. So if you don't go to Bristol, where's your first race going to be, Paul?
I think we're going to do that. We'll probably go down to that Crown Tour or whatever down there in Nebraska. They got down in Beatrice. And,
I tell you what, the pay on that deal is pretty good.
Yeah, that is.
You know,
Yeah, that'll be a pretty good time. I don't know if I'll bring my car down there for that, but we'll definitely go down there and watch the races and help you guys out. So,
and there's some nice racetracks. I mean, they're pretty decent facilities.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Well, I was able to
Oh
find.
yeah, just go ahead, Chad.
Not completely done, but so this is got a hell of a glare, but so this is the new dual stick. So it shows you load and length, and then you can zero the load and the length at any point through travel. So these are rolling off the shelf right now. So this is the same little touchscreen that we're using in the stagger sticks. They really are a neat piece. Lighting's bad. But yeah, so this is the new one. You can zero the load and the length at any point through travel just by touching the buttons here. And then you can also zero the load when you turn it on. So these are the new dual sticks that are ready to go right now. So
Awesome. Thanks, Cody, for asking that question. I didn't even know there was such a thing out there.
We were talking about that at the school, Chad, that you got to come up with another idea is get somehow so we can measure our rear suspension travel on the stock car. Because since Bob doesn't like the shock travel, the grommets on the shock travels, or the grommet on the shock, so it's not an accurate way of reading your shock or your suspension travel. It'd be kind of cool if some way a guy could figure something out that could go on the rear end or on the spring, or
you're talking off shock though?
What's that?
Measuring shock travels though?
Yeah,
well,
you're talking
or suspension travel. Right.
We were talking about the suspension travel, and like I told the guys at the school, you can't go off of the shock, the rubber O-ring on the shock absorber, because all that does is tell you where it moved the most at. Where it would be nice to have something that we could figure out what the actual travel was, but I'm quite sure bolting something like that on the suspension, yeah, that's never going to fly. But anyway, that's what we were going to talk to you about tonight, was getting something that would tell us what the exact travel actually is.
Well, if you're talking about compression, you can do it with a Sharpie. If you're talking extension, what I did back in the day once in a while, and I don't know how well it would work on a dirt car, but taking the string and taping it at ride height and then letting it pull apart and then measuring that. But it was easy on an asphalt car because we didn't have nearly the amount of debris flying underneath the race car. But you could come up with some sort of an apparatus that you'd be able to tie off, and then it would pull it. I know what you're saying, Bob, with putting a travel indicator on there. The tech man would probably freak out.
I tell you what the travel is. The problem is when we do something like that, that's going to be a data acquisition thing or something like that, and there's no sanctioning body that's going to let that fly.
Well, if you could tuck a string in there and they call that data acquisition, that's
Well,
old farm technology.
oh yeah, Paul, my old buddy Rocky here, he wants to know how much zip bang do you run on the right front? LOL. Get a better ground on your starter if you're going to go racing.
Thanks, Rocky, for helping out. That was that was quite the ordeal.
Paul's car was all ready to race, go to the racetrack, and they couldn't get it started after the race. I mean, after the school.
Found a bad ground.
So bad grounds. Too good of a powder coat job, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Tim, can you talk about the right rear spring location on the stock car relative to the center line of the housing on top versus behind? What should a guy expect when going from one to the other? So basically, he's asking you about running the spring on the center of the housing or in front or behind. We talked about that a little bit in the school the other day.
Yeah, we used to, a few years back, maybe 6-7 years ago, we used to run the spring farther behind the rear end. You can get away with running a softer spring back there. It seems like the car gets on the right rear better. Sometimes, kind of with the setups everybody's running right now, it's almost like you're getting on the spring too much. So once again, it's just kind of a balancing act. That's why we just put our springs back on the center line. It just, then the guy doesn't have to outthink the game. I really don't think you gain anything by putting that back there, because technically, I mean, if you move it back that 2.5 inches or move it forward that 2.5 inches, it's really no different than putting, softening or stiffening your spring. I know, some guys, like on the left rear, we have it in front, and that a lot of that's just because in full droop, it feels like that spring's pushing harder on the left rear to give you more drive. On the right rear, you're not really drooping, you're compressing it. So guys think that if you put it on the front, it helps the cars out in the dry slick to put it on the front. I know, like Kelly's cars, they run it in the front. We tentatively just keep it in the center. It's just kind of a, balancing act between the two. But I mean, at the end of the day, really, it's, you could just soften or stiffen your spring and accomplish the same thing.
Okay, well, it looks like our old buddy Pat checked out on us. Well, thanks, Pat, for watching. We appreciate you coming on here and watching the show. Where are we at time-wise? 3 minutes. How would running a late model soft tire on a stock car affect how much spring rate the car is in compression compared to an 8-inch tire? Well, that late model soft tire has got a lot softer sidewall. So in reality, that would be like softening your springs up, because the tire is kind of like the go-kart type stuff. The tire is still part of your suspension. I mean, spring rate's relative to the tire that you're running. So in that situation, I would almost lean towards possibly needing to maybe run a little bit stiffer spring and to compensate for the sidewall of the tire. That would be my suggestion. What's your guys' thoughts?
I honestly, if you got a soft tire, that's going to be getting more side bite and more grip on the track. I mean, it's kind of that old saying, if you run a softer spring, that kind of, the stiffer spring is going to push that tire in the dirt even harder. So, I mean, I don't know. A lot of that, a guy just have to probably test with that. I mean, I know like the guys that run down to Texas, I can't even think of it, where they run the 10-inch slicks. We have some guys out in Oregon that run those in our stock cars. They run a regular IMCA car, where they put that 10-inch slick on there. And I mean, they get so much traction that they can't even keep the front tires on the ground. Like literally, they're coming off the corners, the whole front end of the car comes off with the stock 4-link rear suspension. So, that's, you just got to free the car up is really what you got to do.
Yep. JJ wants to know how to avoid the high-speed milking.
He should be able to answer that question himself. He's a top-notch high speeder right there. High-speed milks. I think he's high-speed milking right now.
Blake, have you ever thought about hosting a school at a track where guys could bring their cars? Well, actually, Blake, we did that years ago, but we ended up having to do it down in Texas, where the weather was sort of decent. The problem, we thought about doing that, during the summer or whatever, but to get a racetrack and to get it prepared when they're running weekly events, it seemed like it was just very difficult to get everything worked out to what we wanted it to do. But that's something to think about, and we'll definitely put it in the works of thoughts of. I've had a couple people ask about that.
I'd like to be a part of that, Bob. That'd be fun because I mean, you could just blame everything on the driver. It's the
Yeah, when you have a 90-degree day and the sun's out on that racetrack, yeah,
Yep.
that would definitely be some high-speed milking there, buddy.
Exactly. Yep.
So, for caster measurements with the angle finder, couldn't the finder be rotated 90 degrees similar to the Hammond tool, but hook it together with 2 Wehrs clevises and bolt a wing nut with a bubble level on the tool to take the camber angle out of the equation? Well, I don't know, Ryan. What I would say is, why don't you give it a try and let us know? Our next show is March 15th, and we would definitely like to see how that would work. All right,
March
guys.
15th, I'll be in Bristol.
What?
March 15th, I'll be in Bristol, so I'll have to do it from there. March
15th, you'll be in Bristol. What the heck? Well, we'll have to talk about that. We might have to wait till the week after Bristol then, or go. We'll come up with a solution. Anyway, well, I appreciate you guys being on here tonight, and thanks to all you racers for your great questions. And we'll look forward to coming back and doing another one. We'll get our schedules figured out, and we'll make sure we post it online so you know when the next one is that's going to be coming out. So thanks again. Thanks, Pat, for coming on today. I kind of threatened him that after his high-speed milking thing, he needed to come on this weekend to explain, or this Monday night to explain that to everybody. And thanks again, Chad. We appreciate it. All right, you guys have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
See ya. Thank you.